Welcome to Crypto Sapiens, a show that hosts lively discussions with innovative Web3 builders to help you learn about decentralized money systems, including Ethereum, Bitcoin, and DeFi. The podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and it is not financial advice. Crypto Sapiens is presented in partnership with Bankless DAO, a movement for pioneers seeking freedom from the limitations of the traditional financial system. Bankless DAO will help the world go bankless by creating user-friendly on-ramps for people to discover decentralized financial technologies through education, media, and culture. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Humpty Calderon. And today I'm talking to Leighton Cusack, co-founder at PoolTogether, and community advocates Mkkoll and Gio. We discuss the crypto-powered savings protocol and the value of creating accessible on-ramps to DeFi for new users. Let's get started.
First off, thanks for having us. Super excited to be here. Love Bankless and what you guys are doing, and been a fan for a long time. But so about myself, I got into crypto in late 2016, and at the time, I originally got into Bitcoin. And if you guys remember, like that was when Coinbase had two assets. They had Bitcoin and ETH, and I was like, oh, this ETH is only like $9, and Bitcoin's like $900, so I should buy ETH. And so that's how I found out about Ethereum. And then throughout 2017 and 2018, started just getting more and more involved, and ultimately went to this Ethereum hackathon in Denver, the ETH Denver hackathon in February of 2019, and had the idea for starting PoolTogether at that time, for starting a protocol for no-loss lotteries, aka no-loss prize savings. And basically pitched the idea there, got a grant from Maker, and that's, I'm obviously skipping over a lot of stuff, but that's pretty much how PoolTogether started. So PoolTogether is actually one of the first DeFi protocols. It launched in June of 2019. So at that time, there was SNX, there was Maker, there was Uniswap, Compound, and PoolTogether, and that was pretty much the only ones that existed.
Oh, thanks for the intro. And actually, great to hear that the genesis was at ETH Denver. Seems like a lot of activity happens there, and a lot of great projects that we're familiar with have had their start there. Also, in terms of PoolTogether and its genesis and its, relationship with Maker, and the fact that it's one of the earliest DeFi protocols, all of it just really makes sense. In fact, I was recently listening to a discussion where you participated. I believe it was with David Hoffman, and you were just talking about how it was time to kind of talk a little bit more about PoolTogether, just because of the fact that a lot has happened since the very beginning of DeFi, and PoolTogether too has continued to grow and evolve. So why don't you talk a little bit about that aha moment, the inspiration to PoolTogether, and why you chose to take on this, concept of taking these no loss lotteries?
So no loss lotteries are actually something that exists in the sort of traditional financial system, and they're not super popular in the United States. So a lot of people don't necessarily know that. But for me, when I was getting into DeFi, I was really interested in working on protocols that would help people become more financially healthy, right? Like actually help people achieve financial mobility and achieve financial health. And basically, in my research, I came across this idea for no loss lotteries and thought, wow, one, this is like a brilliant idea, and two, there's a ton of research showing that this actually helps people save money. It actually decreases spending on normal lotteries. So it's sort of empirically proven. And three, that this is an idea that would just work way better as a decentralized protocol. And so that was really the motivation was like, okay, how do we build something that's going to actually help people achieve financial wealth? And the kind of the edge was like, well, this is a proven idea that's super popular. It helps people. And also, it's going to be way better on a blockchain.
So let me go back a little bit there, because I think there's something here that I'm really interested in, and that is the concept of no loss lotteries and how these are being used in other countries outside the US. From your research, first, what is it what's the function? How are these being used in other countries? And two, from your research, did you see these working? Because it was kind of like, and I hate to use this overused term, but banking the bankless, giving people an opportunity to be able to save in a way that's not accessible through normal means.
Yeah, well, so currently the biggest like no loss lottery in the world is in the UK, and it's called Premium Bonds. And so, for some general stats, they have $100 billion deposited into premium bonds, and that generates about like $1.2 billion a year in prizes. And so, from a scale perspective, this is a really large, like I said, it's one of the most popular consumer financial instruments that exists. Um, and and they are, as you said, they are really popular. They're really popular actually kind of across the demographic spectrum. But there is a lot of research that shows specifically unbanked people will essentially use these. This will attract people who are not traditionally banked and get that. There's a really good research report. I'll find the link and post in the chat when I'm not talking. But basically doing research on how many people who didn't have bank accounts created bank accounts for the first time, specifically to do no loss lotteries. And obviously, with PoolTogether, that just makes it so much easier, right? Because you don't have to create a bank account to join PoolTogether. You just have to have an Ethereum wallet or a wallet on Polygon.
Yeah. So I'm trying to wrap my head around this in terms of how this works and all that. But I guess one of the things that I'm curious is, so when you were doing your research and you were adapting this for the digital world, what lent itself to doing this on chain, and kind of what was the vision for it, or really how were you taking that original idea and then evolving it for the blockchain?
Yeah, well, so I think there's two parts to that, right? So the first part is maybe a little bit more of the boring part, and that's like just sort of from a functionality perspective why it's better, right? So if you're doing this on the blockchain, it means it's globally accessible, right? It's not limited to one specific country, so it means you can have like way more deposits, way bigger prizes, etc. If you're doing this on the blockchain, it means it's auditable, it's open source. So typically a big problem with no loss lotteries is like, how do you know that the person who actually won is not just the guy's friend who's running it, right? And so, being an open source project on the Ethereum blockchain, it's auditable. Anyone can verify that it's truly fair. It's also far more scalable, right? You have no incremental cost. So for a new person to deposit into the protocol, there's no cost associated. I mean, that person is paying a transaction fee, but there's no cost to the protocol to do that. So those are sort of like the like operational reasons that I thought this was a lot better. But I think the most important reason is the one we haven't, is the decentralization and user ownership, right? So having instead of a financial intermediary like a bank running this program and monopolizing the profits that come from it, you have a decentralized network that's owned by the pool token holders who receive the token for using the protocol and can run the protocol. And I think that is the other big piece that's really exciting and I'm really excited about.
Well, and I think that just goes back to the topic of discussion, and that's DeFi primitives, right? So I think to some degree, if not not just to some degree, but really, PoolTogether is one of those DeFi primitives, and it sounds pretty original in terms of what we may be familiar with in terms of DeFi, because there's mechanisms there that are unique to it.
Yes. Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of DeFi primitives are pretty hardcore financial things, right? Like we have a lot of like options and like hedging and like all these things, which are great. But like, I sort of think of PoolTogether as like a DeFi primitive for normal people. Like, it's something that like your grandma probably isn't going to trade like options, but I think she might want to deposit into PoolTogether.
Yeah, and it's familiar, I guess, a better word for it. Especially for those where these systems are available to them, they recognize them, and it isn't as scary. Based on its complexity, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like, I mean, the only thing that we struggle with is it's almost too good to be true, right? Like people have to be convinced it's not a scam because they're like, wait, a lottery I can't lose.
Right. Why don't we speak to that? Why don't we talk about the no loss part of the lottery? What does that mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to get our other community advocates involved here because they can speak to this even better than I can. But so I'll give a quick answer and let them talk. But no loss basically just means in relationship to what you deposit, you will always end up with the same or more money. If you deposit $100, you can take your $100 back whenever you want to. Your worst case scenario is you will have $100 plus some pool tokens. Your best case scenario is you'll have $100 plus thousands more dollars. So like the luckiest winner so far with PoolTogether, they deposited $78 and they won $43,000. So it's basically like you always are going to win, but sometimes you'll win like even more.
Gio, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So the way I look at the no loss part is with traditional lotteries, they're kind of parasitic, right? They're a gamble. So you put your money in, you may win, but chances are you won't, and your money's gone forever. PoolTogether is different because it turns that, or it flips that on its head, and it turns into a savings account. So I kind of think of PoolTogether as like your traditional bank account, but with like supercharged with extra features, right? Because you're getting on some of the pools, you're getting a pretty healthy APR, but you're also getting that that fun aspect to it where you have a chance to win a prize. So and like Leighton says, you're never losing that initial principal and deposit. You can continue to add to it, and you can increase your tickets and your chance to win. So it's totally upending the traditional idea of a lottery where you're losing your deposit.
Yeah. Well, can you talk a little bit about those tickets? Because actually, I don't recall that through my research. How do those tickets function?
So a ticket is just represents a chance to win in the pool, right? So if we use the stablecoin pools as an example, you've got DAI and USDC. When you deposit one DAI or one USDC, you get in return one ticket, one chance to win. And the protocol uses that ticket to inform the user's chance. If you deposit 100 DAI, that would be 100 tickets, and that would be up against all the other tickets from all the other users in the pool. And the protocol is selecting. It depends on the pool actually, because some of them are 5 prizes per week or 1 prize per day. That's adjustable. But the protocol uses that ticket to inform its selection of the winner.
So is it 1 ticket per deposit or 1 ticket per token that you deposit?
1 ticket per token. So one user can have, many tokens.
So you could increase your chances, per se, based on the amount of tokens that you deposit.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it savings, right? Because you can use it as just a traditional bank account, but it's got that extra aspect to it where you've got the chance to win. You can continue to add to it, and you can continue to increase your chance. And the protocol will tell you, or the interface will tell you what your actual chance to win is, which is different from traditional lotteries. Like Leighton said, you don't know what your chance is, and you don't know if the winner was selected fairly. You can seal that on the blockchain and see how the protocol came to its decision to select whatever user or whatever ticket holder won the prize.
Yeah, I mean, and that's thanks to that transparency of the blockchain, right? So you're able to see that real time. It also sounds like there's some programmability, because you were saying, it depends on the pool, if you will. So how can, so in other words, can an individual or could an organization change or program different odds? How does that work?
Yeah, so technically, yes, that's possible. That hasn't happened. So that would be like something governance controls, right? So governance controls the prize pools. And so someone could propose an alteration to the prize strategy contract to say like, hey, let's make it so, the odds are not based on the amount of money you deposit, but just based on something else. So that's technically possible, but it hasn't been done.
Okay. So it's programmed at the protocol level, and the changes to that can only be done through consensus through the protocol governance, which in this case is the pool token, correct?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the parameters of the pools are all adjustable by governance.
Okay. And Gio, did you want to add anything to this, or shall we continue?
I think Leighton and Mkkoll introduced it beautifully. I think, one thing I would add just about the no loss element to it, I think it's a PoolTogether in general is just a really good protocol for people who maybe might be like newer to the space or even who have been in a while. And it's just such a simple way, whether it's like family or friends who are in crypto or not, to explain to them what's actually happening, where to actually understand these like DeFi primitives of, hey, I deposit this like dollar and everyone knows what a lottery is. And this thing gets lent out at these other protocols. And then that interest is what is used to, reward the winners or, and then the obviously savings element of it and earning yield. It's just such a beautiful, simple protocol that is easy for both like DeFi super users and new people.
Right. And actually, talking about those on-ramps, which again is on topic, on yesterday's call when we were preparing for this event, Mkkoll, I think you mentioned that this was your introduction to DeFi.
Yeah. So my first foray into crypto and Ethereum, especially, was way back in early 2019. That's when I opened up my first Coinbase account and bought my first Ethereum and stuff. And then I was looking at like, what can I use this for? This Ethereum is supposed to be a smart contracts platform, right? So where's all the smart contracts? And it was around summer, where I heard of this PoolTogether thing, and I decided to try and use it, figure out how it works, and try and make a deposit. And when I did that, that was like an epiphany moment for me. That was what made me really understand. Okay, we've got something here. This is potentially world changing technology. The fact that me as just some random user can take full custody of my funds and do whatever I want with them. I can put them in this contract. I can earn, have a chance to win in this prize savings game. And it's totally up to me to do that. So yeah, PoolTogether is an excellent teachable moment, I think, for anybody to really understand what Ethereum and smart contracts are capable of. And it's actually the one example I use when I show people, like, I'm the crypto guy in my circle of friends, right? So I show them PoolTogether to try and, get them to understand what the value is here. And there's a lot of value.
Certainly. I think that there are needs for creating tools that are simple to understand, especially for, as new crypto users. The goal is to increase adoption to everyone, to make DeFi, appealing and useful for everyone. And so I think that what PoolTogether is doing is fantastic because it's certainly meeting that need. And, hearing your story, Mkkoll, to me was inspiring because there's something about someone who discovered or started their own journey through a protocol.
It broke me into DeFi.
Yeah. I mean, I think that to me is the ultimate advocacy, right? Is individuals who come forward and say, I was curious, I was interested, I got into this, it meant something to me, I learned it, and now I am a part of its growth. I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why I spend quite a bit of time just, following the PoolTogether DAO Discord, participating in discussions. And that's just through, my own innate passion and belief in the power of the project and where it can potentially go and where it can lead to. So yeah, this is why I'm here and doing this, because I truly believe in the value that the protocol can actually offer to anybody that wants to use it.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who's been around crypto or DeFi for any amount of time, they know that really for any project to succeed, it's the power of the community. So it's great to see that PoolTogether is empowering and giving community members a platform to continue developing that protocol together. Really, no pun intended. So are there any metrics here to kind of see how far the protocol has come from its beginnings? I know that there are, in terms of deposits, there's growth. In terms of the number of prizes, there's been growth, and then there's also certain goals that have been set by the community. Leighton, did you want to speak about to these things?
Yeah, I mean, I can just give some quick high-level context. So, I mean, high level, a year ago at this time, there's probably about $1,000 of prizes a week. Now there's about $100,000 of prizes a week. In the last like 5 months, there's been over $4 million that's been awarded by the protocol, as well as over $1 million that's been retained by the protocol in the protocol reserves. So it's so growth has been good. But our big goal is to get to $1 million in a weekly prize, to get to $1 million weekly prize, and that's sort of from from a future looking perspective. That's what we're working towards, and we have a lot of stuff we're working on that we think is going to make that possible and make that happen in the near future. But that's sort of where we're at right now.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. So before we close out, I think that there's a few things about the project that are interesting and that I personally want to learn a little bit more of. I know that there is I guess, two different ways to use the protocol, and one of those is pools and one of those is pods. Can you help us understand what each of them does and how they're different?
Yeah, so I can take this one. I think of pools. So pools are the main flagship part of PoolTogether, right? That's where you deposit your funds, you enter the pool, and you have your chance to win. Pods are kind of built on top of the pools. So a pod is a way for many. We think of it in terms of many small fish can combine their funds and all their tickets to become a big fish. So currently, at the moment, you have a lot of pools with a lot of whale players. They're putting their millions of dollars up against the little fish with a few dollars in the pool, and the little fish don't really have great chances of winning on their own. But what a pod does is it's a separate contract that you can join, and it will combine all the tickets for all the individual users that join that pod, and the pool contracts treat the pod contract as a single user. So that single user's tickets can all potentially win the prize, and the pod will distribute that prize fairly amongst all its participants. So it's kind of like a pool within a pool, if you think about it like that. That's how I think about it. Yeah.
And just to add on top of that, like the interesting part about pods, and they were originally made to decrease the fees associated with trying to deposit into a pool. So, if the user tries to deposit whatever amount of money, the gas fees are reduced by about 70%. But like one of the side effects of this type of mechanism is that this pod, it's almost great for communities like Bankless and some other ones have used it, like a Reddit community called Lead Finance. They already have a pod set up, and like they have maybe hundreds of users at this point that are all deposited into PoolTogether, into the DAI pool through this pod. And when this pod wins, everyone wins at the same time. So it's like a celebration in a way when that pod wins for that community. So it's like a fun way not only to reduce your gas costs, but also to celebrate with the other people that you spend your time with.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's a good point to touch on, because I think, through my research, I found that there is something in terms of gas efficiency that pods enable that pools do not.
Yeah, so I believe the main reason for that is because when you're joining a pod, you're not directly joining the pool. You're not depositing the funds into Compound or the yield source, because you can get many yield sources, Compound, Aave, etc. You're not doing that complex gas transaction. So when you're joining the pod, you're not doing all that. What the pod does is, behind the scenes, there's a concept of a pod manager, and they run that batch themselves, and that batches all the users' transactions into the pool. So there's only one, deposit into the yield source instead of every user doing that expensive deposit themselves. I think that's the primary reason why the gas is reduced.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And thanks for explaining that. So in terms of ROI, I know that one of the things that's said is that there's better ROI in the long run with PoolTogether. And one of the reasons for that is the reserve. Can we talk about the reserve and how that works in PoolTogether?
Yeah, so the reserve is actually set by governance. Governance has control of the reserve rate on each of the pools. It can be anywhere from 0 to 100%. Obviously, you don't want 100% because you want a prize eventually to come out at the end of the prize period. But what happens with the reserve is each, for the pools that are programmed to have a reserve, a portion of the prize, let's say it's 5%, will go back into the back into the pool. It won't be part of the prize. So, and that reserve is not eligible to obviously get distributed to a user. So we think of it as a perpetual growth mechanism where every week or every day, depending on when the pool is drawn, the reserve is constantly growing and constantly feeding more value into the pool and the prize that the pool can eventually receive. So, I think our biggest reserve right now is currently the USDC reserve, and I think that has over 500,000 USDC worth of value in it, and that's just purely through every week, taking some of the prize away and putting it back in reserve to feed the protocol and feed the protocol's growth.
So it compounds.
Yes, and just to add, it's not eligible to win as well. So it's really just has one purpose. It's just contributing to increasing the prize.
That's actually very interesting. I think at least not something that is common in DeFi in terms of holding back a piece of I guess that reward for really to kind of support the mechanism of rewarding people into the future.
Yeah, so it's providing sustainability, right? Like, let's say for some reason everybody removes all their deposits from the pool. Well, there's going to be a floor to that, right? Because the reserve is always still going to be there, and the reserve is still earning interest. So there will always still be a prize or some capital to generate interest and generate a prize because the reserve exists, and that's why that's what enables the sustainability of the protocol into the future. There will always still be users in the pool because there is always a prize that is being generated, and the users will be incentivized to join the pool and collect that prize.
Well, it's cool too because it really just through that reserve, you're also increasing the yield that's getting rewarded. Whatever the distribution rate is, or the prize rate.
Well, yeah, you could look at it like that because the prize is part of the yield of the of the pool, right? So yeah, it's going to be increased by some percentage depending on your chance to win the pool.
So where does a pool token fit in all of this? We talked about it being the governance token, but how do participants in the protocol get their hands on the pool token?
It was initially distributed earlier this year to users of the protocol. So like Mkkoll, myself included. I mean, I've used it over the past couple of years, and I was airdropped Pool to be part of governance. And people who even participated in like snapshot votes, even prior to Pool being distributed, was also given Pool. But these days, I mean, it's just publicly accessible on any DEX, Swap, and whatnot. And there's with the token, there's also like, which hasn't been mentioned, if you are an LP, I mean, I don't think many people know about it because the yield is pretty high. The LP yield, is around 40%. So, that's another like use of the token that I guess isn't being used enough.
Yeah, there's actually an ETH pool LP position on Uniswap V2, and like Gio says, it gets a pretty ridiculous APR for what it is. I consider Pool to be one of the more high quality tokens in the space because it has a protocol that is generating reserves. It's got sustainability, so there will always be a price floor to that token. And that's not the only way you can earn Pool tokens. Most of the flagship pools on the main site have a concept of a pool drip, and that's what provides your APR. So the DAI and the USDC pools have some of the highest APRs because the governance has decided that we want to promote those pools as much as possible. I believe the USDC pool is one of the ones that we want to try and push to reach that $1 million prize in the future. So the governance has set aside some of its treasury funds, and every day or every block even, some of that pool is dripped to the depositors in the pools. And that's one of the ways that they can earn some value back from the protocol that is not just the prize itself. So that's why it's no loss prize savings, right? Because you've got no loss. We've explained that prize is the prize. But you've also got the savings part. And with savings accounts, you expect some sort of APR or some sort of, return, right? And that's where the pool drip comes in. You're earning something back for your deposit.
Yeah, so it sounds like there are several things at play here. One of them obviously is just put your money on this protocol and you're saving money. The other is there's an opportunity to win a prize, and maybe we can talk a little bit about how that distribution or how that works. But also there's pool. For your participation, you earn a little bit of pool every time there's a prize distributed.
Yeah. So it's incentivizing people to use the protocol and potentially become part of the governance process as well, right? By earning that pool token. And if you're a user of the protocol, hopefully you're incentivized to, make sure the protocol is operating as efficiently as possible and participate in the discussions.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think that's the main vehicle for community engagement and DeFi is, this community participation through governance. And so enabling the users of the platform, who are the ones that would like to see it succeed based on their participation, enabling them a way to gain access to that governance, by, like you said, dripping this pool token on a regular basis.
Yep.
Great. So I guess one last thing is in terms of PoolTogether being multi-chain. Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of, what blockchains it's currently on, how that works in terms of pooling together, these deposits and distributing rewards across blockchains?
Yeah. So right now, PoolTogether is primarily on Ethereum and Polygon, and there is also deployment on Binance Smart Chain. That's not hasn't really been officially announced, but it is done. So primarily just Ethereum and Polygon. But you bring up an interesting point, because right now, basically the way it works is like each prize pool on each chain is sort of its own entity, right? So we have like a USDT prize pool on Polygon that has like $1,000 daily prize. And then we have like a USDC prize pool on Ethereum that has like a $50,000 weekly prize. So they're all different. And what's been being worked on and what will be a big part of PoolTogether V4, which is coming soon, is essentially bridging all those together. So what that means is there will be one prize pool that simultaneously exists on multiple chains. So you could join on Polygon, you could join on Ethereum, you could join on even like Optimistic or Arbitrum, and you will, no matter what chain you're joining on, you'll have the same chance to win one massive prize that's distributed across all the chains. And so that's a little sneak peek on the future, and we're really excited about that.
That's it. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you'd like to learn more about PoolTogether, please go to PoolTogether.com and on Twitter at PoolTogether_. Thanks for listening to Crypto Sapiens. Please give us a follow, like, and a 5-star review wherever you enjoy your podcast. And stay tuned for our next discussion.